I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm excited to be talking about the wonderful film Snack Shack with Conor Sherry, who plays AJ in the film. And starting off, I love how Adam, who's the writer and director of this film, actually kind of came across you in having seen you at the National Speech and Debate Tournament, in which you were in the finals and also won. And I was watching some of that performance, and it's so brilliant because it's so comedic and kind of actually really shows like a huge range of what you can do. And so when you knew that he had seen that and that was part of what interested him in you for this role, how did that inform part of how you were thinking about the way that you wanted to play this character?
I it's fun. I love that you brought that up. It was interesting because I had done my self tape, and then I think Adam kind of I was obviously looking me up to see kind of what more about me, and he saw that video, and that performance is so broad, and it's kind of that SNL style, like all out comedy characters, all of that. So what Adam and I had a lot of conversations about was how AJ's very pulled back, and from Adam's words, it's that he had a lot of fun as a director just kind of restraining me. And as an actor, it was really cool because I was so used to, with speech and debate, doing these like kind of Jim Carrey level, like in terms of like extreme, like I'm playing all these crazy characters. And then in Snack Shack, I just kind of got to pull it all in and have it there. I also feel like that performance is kind of what's going on inside a 15-year-old boy's head anyway. It's like so much chaos. So all I really had to do was just not talk and let the chaos just be right there. But yeah, it was cool to have him know that about me going into it, because not a lot of directors have known that before. So it's cool.
It is, and you're playing a character who is at such an interesting age and kind of like having such a monumental kind of shift in entering adulthood, but kind of trying to race to the finish before he's necessarily run to the end of the track almost. And so how did that idea of, just kind of halfway between childhood and adulthood in that middle ground really shape a lot of it as well for you?
It was yeah, that was a huge part. I think what I really realized is, and through showing the movie recently and hearing from people from all over, how universal that age is. It doesn't really matter if you're in the 90s or you're in 2012 when it was for me, because the feelings are all the same. And I think that that's what's so fun about Snack Shack is it's like a universal feeling that you get of summer and the first love, first loss. So that was really cool for me, and it kind of felt like I got a second chance at the most awkward years of life, like I was like, okay, I can redo the first kiss, or I can redo the first this. So yeah, it was really wild, and it all felt very real out in Nebraska. And yeah, we really just felt like kids. It's kind of bizarre, but it was awesome.
It's also that age where the stakes of everything just feel so big, and I think especially in that time period, it's the only social circle I have are the people at school, the people directly around me. And so how did that idea of like what the stakes are for him, even if they're not necessarily perceived the same for the outside world, influence the way that you were looking at the ramifications of certain decisions and choices and actions and things around him?
Yeah, no, that's very true. I also think we shot in Nebraska City, Nebraska, which is where Adam actually grew up and where the script was written. So it was all that kind of matched. And as much as when you're 15, you have those blinders on, imagine a 3,000 person town in Nebraska, in the middle of Nebraska, in Nebraska City. I mean, the blinders are even more in the 90s without a phone, So it was very kind of concentrated. And I think that that's where a lot of the power of the story lies. And for us, and as actors, and for Gabe and I, who plays Moose, to be able to be in Nebraska, and we actually went out like 2 weeks early, and Gabe and I were working the real Snack Shack, running around Nebraska. I think that really helped. That sort of, as actors and as people, we were able to put our blinders on because we weren't in LA. There wasn't distractions. We were in the town. That's all we had. And so I think that helped to kind of jump into the world where they're doing that. I also think Snack Shack, like, as much as that's my big takeaway from the movie is at 14 and 15, you do have those blinders on and you are focused on the girl next door and making money. But Snack Shack kind of cracks that open. Not a spoiler, but in that third act, like you kind of realize the world is much bigger, which I think is powerful. in a
Yeah, I think that's such a great point about the film and what it does. And in writing it, I mean, Adam has written this based on personal experiences, but it's not necessarily a biography and a play-by-play of everything exactly as it went down for him. But given that a lot of it is stemming from his personal experiences, especially on the emotional side, how was he kind of a really useful tool to you in conversations that you could have with him and insights that he was able to give you?
It was huge. It was yeah, so much of the prep for me was just being in Nebraska City, and I would just drive around with Adam, Gabe, and I would, and he would tell us stories. I mean, you could drive the city in 10 minutes. I mean, you can walk it in an hour and a half. So it was every corner had another story, and every person I met, people working at Walgreens know Adam Raymeyer. They know about the movie. His parents still live there, so it was kind of like just a gold mine of background and a gold mine of catching the vibe was being in Nebraska City and just talking to Adam and real life Moose, talking to him. I mean, it just yeah, it was almost like too much. It was all like we were just flooded with information. There wasn't much to make up or imagine, I feel like, with this one for me. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you were bringing up before the time that you and Gabriel LaBelle, who plays Moose, spent for those couple weeks beforehand. And obviously, I love the idea of the two of you physically just spending time in that space together because it just builds this intrinsic chemistry between them. Did the two
Yeah.
of you spend any time kind of going through the script or talking about character, or was it really just that sense of, building a relationship together off screen so that you could bring that on screen?
Yeah, we talked about the script kind of in specific moments, and which I think was helpful because then in the other moments we were able to kind of just be in Nebraska and in the space. But yeah, we were just spending a lot of time together with no crew, no nothing. It was before anyone had gotten there, so it was a very unsort of touched Nebraska City experience those first 2 weeks. But yeah, we would. I mean, we were kind of, I think, both a little more method than we realized in those first 2 weeks. Like I'm looking back, we were doing a lot of Moose AJ stuff. And yeah, I remember once Gabe we were just talking about something and then he like said a line from the movie. And I like realized, I was like, wait, that's from a scene. And so then I kind of like said my line and then he kind of said his. And then all of a sudden we were just like running lines, walking in Nebraska City, like naturally right off of our stuff. And that really sticks out to me. And it was pretty early on, and it got me really excited to work with Gabe because I was like, all right, like let's go. Like we can just kind of jump right into this. It was cool. Yeah, he was awesome. And I honestly I learned a lot from him, which was really, really cool and really fun.
And there's also a lot of physicality in their friendship and the way that they express things that might be, I'm not going to tell you I love you, but I'll punch you in the arm and I'll kick you, and then you'll know how I feel about you. And I heard that you spent some of those 2 weeks working with Brady, who was the stunt coordinator, on really kind of figuring out the physicality of what that was going to look like. And so, how did he kind of guide the two of you into that?
Oh yeah, no, Brady was great, and it was so cool to have him out there for us in that kind of beginning space of those 2 weeks. Um, Honestly, Gabe and I we would just make fun of each other in the first 2 weeks. We were just pushing each other, riding our bikes. I mean, yeah, you don't really get to do that, I feel like, as an adult anymore. Like I can't be like punching my friend, like, I don't know, at dinner. Like that's crazy, like in LA. So yeah, it was a lot of just getting comfortable, and it was so much easier than people would think to jump back into 15-year-old. I mean, I even see it though, like with grown adults, especially after they see this movie, like they'll come up to me, they're like 50 and they're like, "What's up, bro?" And I'm like, "Yeah, so you could also play this role, you know?" Like I think there's a part of it. There's a 15-year-old boy inside everyone, no matter your age, every man, I think, maybe woman, I don't know.
And within the physical comedy of it as well, you've talked previously about having a high school teacher who kind of really encouraged you in that space and really taught you a lot of that, like literally teaching you how to pratfall and fall downstairs.
Yeah.
And so how did you kind of look back to even just moments when you were kind of studying and learning drama in high school with your teacher that actually really helped you out for a role that had so many physical moments like this?
Yeah, gosh, I love this interview. You're paying so much like honor to so much of what made me like who I am. I love this. That's so true. Yeah, I did in high school I did a lot of like plays and I did a lot of farces. And if you don't know what a farce is, not you, I'm sure you do, the people listening. A farce is like it's a play that's very slapstick, so it's a lot of like doors hitting people in the face and falling downstairs and going in one room and then running to another. So yeah, I think doing those shows where I was essentially falling downstairs and getting beaten up for 2 hours straight really conditioned me for Snack Shack and a lot of the kind of physicality that was in that. And yeah, and I think it just doesn't get better than the stage in doing it, because it was not fall down the stairs and try to make it look real and we'll get this angle. I mean, it was a flight of stairs and 250 people out there of my peers and community, and then I would just fling down the stairs. So it's yeah, I think it was the best kind of training for all of that. And yeah, and speech and debate too. So yeah, it was my coaches as well, that kind of physicality. Yeah.
I love that, and you were talking earlier about, in essence, there's kind of in the three acts, the first two acts, that AJ kind of still has these blinders on. And then in the third act, his world just kind of really opens up because he goes through something quite emotional. And I loved kind of how it flowed between those spaces tonally, that you're allowed to have that high comedy. And then you're also allowed to have really heartfelt, hard moments for him as a character in the third act. How did you want to play the comedy and make sure that there was a lot of truth in that for him, so that when you get to the more heartfelt things, it really lands just as much for the audience?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was when I first read the script, it's such an honest portrayal of a 15-year-old boy. I've read a lot of scripts since being out here, and Gabe and I always talk about this, and even just the dialogue is very I always say, if you've raised a 15-year-old boy, or you've been a 15-year-old boy, or you've been the sister of a 15-year-old boy, then you'll understand this movie. But I think kind of what you asked about, those moments when it kind of ebbs and flows and you go from the crazy like comedy cussing to those kind of, even just the moments with Brooke where it's kind of music and the nail painting scene. I just think it's so truthful. And a lot of moms have loved the movie for this reason, because every mom sees a different side of like their 15-year-old boy, and every usually a girl that likes a boy, they see a different side than a 15-year-old boy with the boys. Like, they're gonna be pushing and shoving, but I think this movie kind of sheds light on both, and it shows that we're sweet too. Like 15-year-old boys, we're crazy, but we're we're also really sweet. And I think that getting to show that dynamic along with so many other dynamics of AJ was just really cool for me, because it felt honest. I felt like I got to show a full character instead of just like a slice or like a bit character, or like something I had the opportunity to let you actually meet a full person, and see him go through a lot of different things, which was really special. And I didn't take it lightly. I knew that going into it. So
yeah, and I think some of that authenticity as well that comes through is also just allowing for fallibilities and things that feel embarrassing, because that's also so true. Everybody knows that feeling of talking to someone that you really like, and things don't go the way that you thought they would, and so you've got AJ mowing the grass and just like giving the most disgusting sneeze in front of a girl that he thinks is really cute. And so what were some of the important touch points of really allowing him to have those embarrassing moments that he's going to be replaying in his head time and time again afterwards?
oh gosh, like for me, like as an actor, or like in the movie?
Yeah, just in terms of like allowing him to have those moments, what felt like the important touch points?
Well, I also have deathly bad allergies, so that specific scene was a easy segue. And for me, I mean, I just screened Snack Shack in my hometown. We did a little event there in San Jose, and my two best friends from the same age, from 14, they came down. I haven't seen them in 8 years, and they came to this event. They saw the movie with my mom. It was really a special moment for me. And I didn't the conversation after the screening was the coolest thing ever. And I think that's what this movie has done for a lot of people. We just dove into I didn't realize, I always knew it was similar, but gosh, the things that would happen, like giving a girl a necklace for the first time. Like, my buddy Trenton and I were talking about it, and he totally remembers. I don't even think anyone in the world remembers except for maybe Trenton and Josiah. But yeah, those sense memory. It was at the Scholastic Book Fair, and I gave this girl a necklace, Alana, shout out Alana. And so I mean, it's just so similar. Like, it's those butterflies. Even if you get them on Snapchat now in the 90s, it's the same butterfly of when a girl looks at you as when someone, I don't know, likes your story on Instagram. But yeah.
Absolutely. And I also love the friendship that he has with Shane, who's kind of, a few years older and a real mentor figure and a real brother figure to him in life. And it's that thing where Shane kind of represents the version of himself that he wants to grow into and become. And, I think especially at that age, when you have those people that are a few years older that you really look up to, it's even like you stand a little bit taller when you're around them and you start to kind of try to figure out how you can absorb into becoming a little bit more like them. And so, how did you want Shane as a character to really influence the way that AJ acts when he's around him?
Yeah, and I also think that that's a fairly universal experience. A lot of, growing up, I totally had a Shane. I was like one of the presidents on my speech and debate team, and you look up to them, and they kind of take you under their wing, and it's you kind of feel, yeah, like you said, you stand a little taller. And specifically with Snack Shack, I experienced that with Nick Robinson, who played Shane, for the obvious reasons that he's had such an amazing career, and is kind of the king of coming of age stories with Kings of Summer, and so many, Love Simon, like so many amazing movies. And so from a Connor Nick standpoint, I felt very similar. And yeah, for it being my first movie, he totally, the same way Shane treats AJ, like just as an equal right there. Nick did that with me off screen, and it was really, yeah, like you said, I just stood a little taller, and I was like, okay, I got this. And that's how AJ feels every time he's with Shane. He kind of is like, okay, I can go to Alaska, so that made that process pretty easy, I think, and that relationship. And yeah, and still to this day, Nick's been really, really great to me, and a great resource and friend. So I'm very thankful. Good casting. Good job.
I also feel like the film does a great job at really kind of capturing the internalized world of AJ. There's a lot of scenes and a lot of moments where Adam just, really sits the camera on your performance. And, he's not someone who's always hugely verbose with his feelings when he's feeling wounded. And so, what was that like, getting to explore so much of the internal world of a character, but doing it on camera in that way?
It was, honestly, it was very like therapeutic, I think, and kind of, I think cathartic is a word that works there. But it was to get to go through all the emotions of holding it in, because AJ does hold it in for so long, as I think every 15-year-old boy is, then to the end, and to sort of have the release at the same time, all within one picture, was really, because even in the comedy moments, he's still holding in how he feels. I mean, even when he's like messing around with Moose and he's upset at Moose, he's still not speaking his mind the way that Moose does. So yeah, I think it was very, it felt like a lot of tension built, but a lot of tension got released at the same time, which was, yeah, I mean, it just felt, I guess cathartic would be the word. And it was really cool to be a part of that with Adam too, because, it was based on so many truths. And so it felt like it just ebbed and flowed. It just felt kind of right. And it was very, yeah, it was amazing.
And it even goes back to what you were talking about at the beginning, with Adam really kind of guiding you and having a certain aspect of restraint in how you played AJ because of that. And so did you find it was like this constant balance of like how much restraint and how much you wanted to let him grow out of himself? Because it's not something where we see the most restraint at the beginning and then he just fully comes out of his shell. He starts to come out of his shell, then he kind of comes back in, and then he comes further out than he was at the beginning.
Yeah, I think Gabe really helped with that, because I just kind of, for that whole summer, I let Gabe slash Moose just kind of take the reins. And it was, so from there, we just kind of launched in those 2 weeks. And Gabe was like, hey, we're going on a double date tonight with some girls from Nebraska. And I was like, all right. Like, it was just, it was fun for me too, because I usually am so kind of, I feel like energetic and always like with my friends and stuff. And so I got to kind of be in the passenger seat all summer, which was really fun, and totally tracked with the movie. And yeah, so I think that kind of helped with that. Wait, what was the question? Was there
It was
not
just
sure.
about kind of like that constant kind of like change and ebb and flow of restraint in him in what you were just describing.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was pretty much it. And Adam would, it kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It really, it felt right kind of in that first day. And then we just went from there. And Adam is so, so much is on the page. Like it's not improv, you know, all his writing is there, all the beats are there. So once we found that rhythm, it was just very, I mean, he basically would direct us with hand motions. Like, you know, I kind of just felt like I knew we were zoned in. So if he wanted more, he would just be like, if he wanted less, he'd be like, you know, it was very, yeah, it was cool. It was a cool connection.
Yeah. And with what you were talking about there as well, where, Moose is kind of the one in the driving seat and kind of taking the reins a lot and coming up with 10 different entrepreneurial ideas every minute. I love that it also captures the value that AJ brings as well. So even though he's the quieter participant of the two of them, that he has just as much value to bring to the table as Moose does, as more of an extrovert. And so for you, what did you kind of view as the most important things that AJ was bringing to the table and that you wanted to make sure the audiences saw?
Gosh, I mean, hopefully he's bringing some like clarity. I don't know what would happen to Moose if he had someone that was always saying, I mean, AJ always ended up saying yes, but he would point out potential issues and kind of be the level-headed one. And I really thought I was more of a Moose, like growing up, and even today, I'm like, I'm crazy, you know. I thought that was my whole thing, and allegedly from Mika, who played Brooke, I guess I'm more like AJ than I thought. There was one day we went into the pool at night, because everything was so close, right? Like the swimming pool was a block away from the hotel, and I thought I was being a badass with everyone, but apparently I was super scared and I didn't go in, and I was scared we were gonna get caught, and I was like outside the fence like tweaking, and I don't know. So I guess maybe I'm more like him than I realized, but yeah, so he was just that. He was aware. I mean, his dad was the town judge, so you kind of gotta be a little more aware than other people, but it was a balance. And everyone has that balance with a friend. I think everyone has a Moose. And if you don't have a Moose, you're probably the Moose. So
And sometimes you're a little bit of an AJ and a Moose.
yes, that's I think hopefully where I've landed. But yeah.
And we get to see, the friendship when they're as close as they've been, but we also get to see what happens when it breaks apart and what that looks like. So how did you and Gabriel set about figuring out what do these friends look like when there's conflict and when they feel really fractured and separate from one another?
It was important for it to be very real, because there are so many big moments in this movie of chaos and throat punching and fighting and stuff. There are a lot of fights in this movie and for these characters that don't really matter. Like as 14, we got in a fight every day. Someone's hitting someone's taking the last chicken wing or whatever. And so I think for those ones, it was important to show kind of the realness. And I think Gabe, he's kind of the first one to really get upset and show it, Moose's. And he just did such a brilliant job of grounding it in a 15-year-old way that felt very, it's almost like a sadness. It's like when you're at that age and you get so frustrated because you just don't know what to do with all these feelings. It's like you're angry and you're mad, but there's like a fear. I almost think like 15-year-olds are kind of afraid of these big adult feelings that they're starting to feel with girls, with friends, with anything. And yeah, I think that was kind of the focus for us, was just tapping into what those feel like for the first time, because everyone has them for the first time and it's very distinct and it's different than when it happens again and again, and everyone's heart breaks many times in life. I mean, at least for me so far, I'm like, oh God, I think it's happening to everyone. But yeah, tapping into that first time was really important.
And even when they're not talking to each other, when AJ gets some really terrible news, his first instinct is just to run straight to Moose and just, I've got to find him right now because we're both going through this together. And it seems on paper like a really simple thing, be like, film a scene, you're running, you're crying, he's upset about things. But actually there's a lot of like logistical things that go into a scene like that. And so what was it like filming that moment in the movie?
Yeah, that moment was actually a that's interesting you say that, because for me and for AJ, my thought process in that oneer right there is actually, and I haven't talked to Adam about this, so maybe I was, now that it's worked, I guess I can say, I don't know if this is the right mindset I was in, but I was actually looking for Shane. And I was running to the pool, and when I'm looking all around, I'm in such a moment of shock as AJ that he's kind of I'm just looking to make sure, this is also so many spoilers, but to see if it's real. And I think then seeing Moose there and realizing nothing really matters, and like then we're together in that moment is like so powerful. But yeah, that was all shot as a oneer. And that was a really intense day on set. It was just very quiet and kind of eerie. It was the last, we were supposed to shoot a couple more scenes, I think, after that, and we ended up just wrapping that day. After we did that scene, it was gosh, yeah. No, I'm like thinking about it. It was like such, because Shane is based on a real guy who Adam really grew up with. His name is Chad, and so or inspired by a lot of Adam's experiences growing up. But to know that it was a kind of pulled from a real thing that happened in this real town, and he really worked at that pool, and like everyone went to that pool, was very, I don't know. Nebraska City is just, it felt very magical in every way, in the comedy ways and the kind of deeper parts of the movie. It was surreal. It was weird. And the cicadas, everything was on cue. Like it felt like it felt like the world was working with the scene that day. And so it was.
No, I actually love your version of kind of that's actually what was going through AJ's mind for that scene, and it completely makes sense in playing
Yeah.
it back. And since we've dug into spoilers, I wanted to talk about the final scene of the movie, because I think it's really beautiful to just see AJ kind of show up back at home on his front door and then just sit there so quietly with his dad. What it means for everything with like his dad as a parent to sit there and open a beer and hand it to him, and the two of them never exchange a single word, and yet the entire conversation that they're having with each other that whole time. And so how did you set about going into filming that final scene?
Um, yeah, I mean, for starters, David Costabile is amazing. I he is probably, I mean, he is like, he's such an actor. I mean, he's done it all. He's done Broadway, he's done everything, and it was so clear when he got to set. And so all of the scenes with him just were electric and made, I didn't realize how much, I realized how seasoned they were, both Jillian and David, when I kind of did those scenes with him. And so that final scene, I think what's really beautiful is the lesson that AJ learns of being 15 and being so focused on his world, and then getting that kind of cracked wide open. I think that Judge, my dad in the movie, learns the same lesson. And I think what that kind of tells to the world is we're all learning that same lesson, that life happens over and over and over again at every age. And it's like, just have the beer, and it's such a huge moment to see a 15-year-old boy learn the exact same lesson as his 50-year-old dad in the same moment. And yeah, so I think that moment's always special for me there, because it makes you realize you don't have to be 15 to have your world rocked out of nowhere. Like it can happen to anyone at any time, and just have the beer. That's the thesis. Like, just have a beer. But yeah.
No, it's such a great point, and I really loved your performance in the film. I think it's such a great coming of age film to kind of like add to that whole cinematic family. So congratulations, and thank you so much, Connor.
Thanks. No, this was so fun to talk to you. Appreciate it.